So, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows is one of those movies that people are extremely polar in their opinions about it. In like, they either like it or they absolutely despise it for some reason that I cannot explain myself. Now, admittedly, it is not a good quote-unquote movie, but it's definitely not a terrible movie either. I think most people that say they hate it are still hung up on the fact that it's not the Turtles that they remember from their youth, or because they're different, or that they're still stuck on how badly done the first movie was. It wasn't a bad movie per se, but box standard at least. But they're still harboring all that hatred that they have for Michael Bay directing one of the things that they grew up with. Now, in my opinion, the first one was okay. It was a 5. There was technically nothing wrong with it that made it a bad movie. It was just people, and well, it was definitely people making some very, very weird decisions during the movie, and people grasping onto those decisions and letting their hatred for it grow. Now, this one definitely made several changes that definitely bump it up to at least a 6 out of 10, quote unquote. That is, if you like it, or if you have absolutely gut-wrenching hatred for it, that's your choice. But anyway, some of the things that definitely bumped it up at least one point in my book is the fact that this is more of a Turtles movie plus their allies, unlike the first one that was more like a April and the Turtles are over there on the side sometimes. So here in this one, the Turtles are on screen for at least 60 or 70% of the movie, and that is a huge bump up to what they were in the first one. So they definitely took some cues from the complaints we had, at least in the first one. The other thing they did is that they definitely showed them a whole lot more in a character developmental way, in that we see a lot more of where they live. We get to see how each one spends most of their time, even if they don't actually actively do it. So during the movie, we get to see their quote-unquote rooms. Raphael's got a whole lot of weightlifting equipment there. Donatello's got his whole little command center thingamajig with his laboratory. I think Michelangelo's got his TV and a whole lot of colorful stuff around him, although I can't remember exactly spotting his. And Leonardo, I think he doesn't have one. At least I didn't see it. But anyway, aside from that, we also had Bebop and Rocksteady finally showing up, and seeing it on the big screen, I could definitely see that in real life. And because this is going for the realistic quote-unquote look, I think they ended up very nicely on the screen. So, in terms of their appearance, they definitely hit it spot on as to how they will look in real life. Their attitudes, their personalities are definitely odd. They feel more like more modern cartoon henchmen, I guess is what I would call them. It's not the same Bebop and Rocksteady we grew up with in the 80s and 90s, but they definitely did feel like it was them. Whether that was a good or bad thing is up to everybody else. And then we also have the introduction of Mr. Casey Jones here. Now, I don't recall seeing him in the original cartoon, but I do know he plays a relatively important role in the more modern Nickelodeon animated TV series, I think. And then in the old CG animated TMNT movie that came out many years ago that I think was actually very, very good. He and April are starting to live together, and that's fine, honestly, because it makes sense. Now, regarding Krang, when I first saw Krang, I was like, whoa, what is this? I mean, it was obviously Krang, but I was like trying to take in how he looked and everything. And after a few seconds of looking at him, looking at the details, and looking at his appearance, I was like, yeah, that is definitely Krang. It's not the big yellow robot with a tiny alien in the stomach. It does happen, but it's not. He is by far not a small alien, not at all. His Krang robot is very, very big. And during the fight scenes that get spoiled very, very little in the trailer, which is a good thing, you definitely see how it definitely got influences from the Krang design. We see the humanoid face for some odd reason, I'm not really sure. And speaking of Krang, the Technodrome, in the trailers, it is not spoiled. It just looks like a big kind of technological sphere that you could see from a Transformers movie. However, as that scene develops and keeps going forward, you definitely see the small details that make the Technodrome instantly recognizable. As in, you get to see the giant eye laser thing at the very top. You've got the antennas sticking out of the sides. The only thing that they did not add on the Technodrome was the tank treads, which I can forgive them because that is a very old concept and that makes it powerful. But anyway, so aside from that, we also got a lot more of ninja-ing. So, as in they sneaking from place to place. In the very beginning, we see them, in the very, very beginning of the movie, like within the first 10 or 15 minutes, we see them sneak into the roof somehow of a basketball stadium to watch a game. And I was like, I'm surprised they figured that out. I'm glad they're doing ninja stuff. And then as the movie goes on, they do more and more ninja things. Now, I don't think they ever actually throw any ninja stars or something like that, but it definitely felt like they were actually trained to be ninjas this time around. Now, in terms of the whole turtle van that we get spoiled in the trailer, it definitely has a lot of things that I think were definitely in the toy from the 90s. As in, the way it spits out manhole covers, I definitely remember that being part of the toy. All the other stuff it does, I do think it was everything. I think, yeah. I'm pretty sure everything that little truck does was part of the toy. So, and I'm obviously anticipating that they're going to release another little toy truck to go with the movie. But, yeah. So, long story short, I think this movie is definitely a better step in the right direction. It is not a perfect movie by any chance, not at all. And in terms, if you were to say, is it a good movie, I would say, it's not good. It's not bad, so it's definitely not good. But because of the way it compares to the first one, it is definitely better than that one. So if that one was a box standard movie, a 5 out of 10, as in there's nothing wrong with it, but nothing sticks out. This one is definitely a 6 out of 10 because of how they paid attention to the complaints we showed on the internet about the first one and tended to fix most, if not all, of those complaints. Now, there is one thing that I could complain about that they do owe us in this movie, and that is, we know Baxter Stockman is there, but we never see even a hint of the mouse droids being developed or created. I definitely think that is a lost opportunity there. There isn't even like a design on a computer screen or anything like that. I think it's a wasted opportunity, but the movie does end on a certain note where there is obviously going to be a third one. After all, Shredder is still alive, Krang is still alive, Baxter Stockman is still alive, and now that we have the ooze, quote unquote, in play, there's definitely a big possibility that we get to see Slash show up in the third movie, which would definitely be very, very interesting, especially since, yeah, he is definitely one of the toughest enemies that I remember the Turtles having to fight, because I think he is as good as all of them put together, but he's also stronger. And he's got the spike shell. So anyway, that is my thoughts on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows movie. You may agree or disagree, and if you disagree or whatever, you can feel free to complain about it in the comments below. You are free to do that. Just remember that everybody has their own opinion, and really the only opinion you should care about is your own. As long as you respect other people's opinions, you're free to do whatever you want. So, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.